The sun had barely risen above the narrow alleys of the old bazaar. Its faint orange light spread over cracked walls and rusty signboards, painting everything entire gold. Shops were slowly waking up, the sound of shutters clattering, broom bristles scraping the ground, and hawkers calling out for customers who rarely came. Among those who opened their shops every morning without hope or haste was Abdul Rahim, a tailor whose life had long been forgotten by the world. His tiny shop sat between a spice seller and a key maker, both younger, louder, and busier than him. The wooden board above his head still read, Rahim and Sons, Royal Tailors since 1965. The paint had faded, and so had the and Sons. He had no sons left. Inside the dimly lit shop, Rahim's trembling hand still worked the needle through fabric. His eyes were weak, but his stitches, his stitches, were still as straight as the sword edge of time. He didn't use machines. He said machines had no soul. Every morning he stitched not because anyone would come, but because that was the only thing he knew, and the only thing that kept him breathing. One afternoon, a group of boys passed by the shop. One of them laughed, "Look, the old man is still sewing. Who buys clothes from him now?" Another added mockingly, "Maybe he's stitching memories." Rahim smiled faintly and kept sewing. He'd heard worse things. Age had not made him bitter. It had made him silent. Once, long ago, he had stitched uniforms for royal guards, rich men, ministers, people with names that newspapers still remembered. Back then, people used to wait outside his shop for weeks just to get one suit made by Master Rahim. He remembered how the prince had once said, "Your hands weave dignity, Usted." But now, those same hands trembled as he cut cheap cloth for cheap people who often didn't even pay on time. That evening, as he closed the shop, he stared at the royal photo frame hanging behind the counter, a picture of him shaking hands with a nobleman decades ago. The glass was cracked, the frame dusty. He sighed. "Maybe it's time," he whispered to himself, "to stop." He folded his tools neatly, locked the door, and began his slow walk back home. His house was a small one-room portion near the railway line, empty except for a sewing machine, an old radio, and the ghost of his wife's laughter that still lingered in the corners. The next morning, as fate would have it, a young woman named Zara stopped in front of his shop. She was a fashion designer, just 24, full of energy and rebellion, with dreams bigger than her wallet. She was searching the bazaar for some hand-stitched work for her new collection. Her eyes caught the old sign, Royal Tailors since 1965. She stepped inside. The bell above the door jingled softly. "Assalamu alaikum," she greeted. Rahim looked up, adjusting his glasses. "Wa alaikum assalam, Betty. What brings you to this dusty place?" She smiled. "I heard old hands make timeless art." He chuckled. "Old hands make slow art, my child. People today want fast fashion. Machines can finish a shirt before I finish one sleeve." Zara ran her fingers across a shirt hanging nearby, a simple white cotton shirt with delicate embroidery on the cuffs. The stitching was so precise, it looked printed. "This? You made this?" she asked, astonished. Rahim nodded quietly. "Every stitch is a prayer, Betty." She looked at the tag, handwritten in fading ink, "Made by Rahim." Something about that humble tag, the dusty shop, the quiet pride in his eyes. It all felt different. "I'll take it," she said suddenly. Rahim blinked. "It's old stock. Nobody buys hand-stitched now." "Then I'll be the first," she smiled. "How much?" He hesitated. 300 rupees. She frowned. "That's too low for something so beautiful. I'll give you 1,000. He protested. "No, that's too much. My work isn't worth that anymore." She looked him in the eye. "It's not the price of your shirt, Baba. It's the value of your art." He smiled for the first time in months. "May Allah bless you, Betty." She left with the shirt, unaware she had just bought a piece of history. That night, Zara posted a photo on her Instagram with the caption, "Found a forgotten artist in an old Karachi bazaar." This isn't just a shirt. It's a story stitched by hands that once clothed kings. Hashtag the art of forgotten hands. By morning, her post exploded. Designers, influencers, and fashion houses began sharing it. The picture of the humble old tailor sitting beside his rusty sewing table spread across the internet like wildfire. People wrote comments like, "Where is this man? We need to honor him. This is real craftsmanship, not factory-made junk." Art never dies. It just waits to be seen again. The next day, Zara ran back to the bazaar, panting with excitement. When she reached the shop, she found Rahim as usual, sitting quietly, sewing buttons. "Baba, you're famous!" she shouted, showing him her phone. He squinted at the screen. "Famous? Me?" She nodded, showing him hundreds of messages and posts with his name. "People want to buy your work. They're asking for your number." Rahim blinked slowly. Subhanallah, he couldn't believe it. "But I have no phone, no website, just these hands." She smiled. "Then let these hands speak to the world." Within a week, Zara helped him open an online page named The Art of Forgotten Hands. She photographed his shirts, his needles, his old sketches, everything. Orders started coming from Dubai, London, even New York. Customers wrote emotional notes like, "Every stitch feels alive." "It's like wearing a piece of history," Rahim could hardly keep up. Zara hired 2 apprentices to help him. For the first time in decades, the shop's dusty signboard was cleaned and painted again. Rahim and Sons, Royal Tailors, since 1965. Except now, and Sons had a new meaning. They weren't his blood, but his legacy. Months passed. The tiny shop became a story everyone loved. Newspapers wrote articles, and a local TV channel came for an interview. When they asked Rahim, "How does it feel to be famous again?" he smiled gently and said, "I was never famous, Beta. My work was. I just kept sewing. The world forgot, but Allah didn't." One evening, Zara came to his home with a surprise. "Baba, next week, you're invited to the National Art and Craft Exhibition. They want to honor you with a Lifetime Achievement Award." Tears welled up in his old eyes. "They remember me." "After all these years, they never forgot," she said softly. "They just didn't look in the right places." The award ceremony was grand, bright lights, music, cameras, and applause. When his name was announced, the entire hall stood up. The old man walked slowly to the stage, wearing the same hand-stitched waistcoat he had made decades ago for a royal wedding. He received the golden plaque, but his trembling hands didn't hold it for long. He turned toward Zara and said on the mic, "This belongs to her, for reminding the world that old doesn't mean useless, forgotten doesn't mean finished." The audience clapped louder. Some even cried. He added softly, "When my hands could no longer feel proud, she gave them purpose again. We are all tailors of our own fate. Sometimes we just need someone to believe our cloth isn't torn yet." A few months later, Rahim passed away peacefully in his sleep. He was buried in a quiet graveyard beside his wife. The next morning, Zara placed his old needle and a small piece of fabric beside his grave. The world mourned his loss. His story was shared on television, in schools, and across the internet as a tale of hope, art, and faith. Years later, the brand, The Art of Forgotten Hands, became a global fashion label, employing hundreds of elderly artisans who had once been ignored. Each tag carried a simple message beneath the logo. Every stitch tells a story. And somewhere in that eternal silence of the bazaar, the old sign still swayed gently in the wind, whispering to anyone who passed by, "Never stop doing what you were born to do, because someday someone will remember."